Hi guys, it's Midnight Strike here, back to continue on the Grand Theft Auto series review. To review not one, but two stories in the Grand Theft Auto franchise. The PlayStation 2 ports of Liberty City Stories and Vice City Stories. The two games that came out to much mixed to negative fanfare, surprisingly so. But then again, I can see the reason why, because if these two games could be summed up in one word, compared to San Andreas, I would say that that one word would be regression. And really that's a shame, because these two games came out on the PlayStation Portable 1 year prior to them being ported over to home console, and a lot of people's expectations were very, very high, especially after the release of Grand Theft Auto San Andreas the year before that in 2004, which I actually gave a perfect 10. So needless to say, anticipation for these two games were very high, and people were expecting a lot out of Rockstar. Not only is this not Rockstar North, but this does not use the famed renderware engine that made the trilogy of games, 3, Vice City, and San Andreas, possible. So you got yourselves a whole new engine, a whole new development team. It's an in-house engine. No one really knows the name of it except for the people who worked on it. I suppose it has a code name, not sure if it was used for any other games, but basically it has the look of Grand Theft Auto, but lacks the feel. It feels like some sort of shameless ripoff of the franchise, even though it does lie in the series itself. So let me explain. With Grand Theft Auto Liberty City Stories first being released on the PlayStation Portable, and I'm not going to claim to have played the PlayStation Portable version, I myself have not. I have only played the PS2 versions of these two titles. Now, with Liberty City Stories being released, they wanted to recapture the feel of Grand Theft Auto 3, which is understandable. So they added in motorcycles, which were actually absent from Grand Theft Auto 3, but they left in all the physics, the feel of all the weapons, and the exact cloned carbon copy map of Liberty City, minus a few different jumps here and there for insane stunt bonuses. A lot of stuff was taken out. So you're playing as Tony Cipriani, which was actually one of the people who gave you missions as Claude in Grand Theft Auto 3. And it is 1998. You've returned to Liberty City Stories, or you've returned to Liberty City to do missions for Salvatore Leone. But instead, you are demoted to being an underling, a little goon, and you actually have to rise up in the ranks much like you did in Grand Theft Auto 3. Now, this is all well and good and everything, but the execution of the story makes this feel exactly like Grand Theft Auto 3, or a shameless ripoff, as I stated before, because everything basically executes itself much like that game. You start off in Portland, you make your way to Staunton Island, and then you do some missions in Shoreside Vale, and you are an underling that is, starts out just taking random jobs from whoever, and you rise up in the ranks and kind of play off of other gangs' strengths and weaknesses and play gangs pretty much to get what you want. It's pretty much an exact carbon copy of Grand Theft Auto 3, albeit with a different ending and a different story about, I want to say 3/4 of the way through, the story kind of gets a little bit different. And I will say that there are a couple improvements that were retained from San Andreas, such as shooting people through windshields, motorcycles, actually being able to, well, not swim, you can't swim unfortunately, but actually being able to manually aim is another one, albeit you have to press a thumbstick and stand completely still. So I kind of give that one half credit, I suppose. Another big one is the ability to shoot out tires, which for some reason is really fucking annoying in this game, because they always aim for the tires, and half the time I'll just steal a vehicle, and then they'll just shoot out the tires as I'm stealing the vehicle, and I found that to be very, very annoying. It happened a lot more in Vice City Stories than it did in Liberty, but I found it to be a major annoyance. Maria, the love interest from Grand Theft Auto 3, also admittedly falls in love with Tony for his money, because she's a little bit of a gold digger in this game, as well as in San Andreas, where she first basically gets in touch with Salvatore Leone. That's why they're married, is because she wants his money. But then she finds out that Tony has money, but then, goes after him, falls in love, in love with Tony, much like she did with Claude. So the execution is exactly the same. The characters are different, but the execution is the same. It just feels like a shameless ripoff of GTA 3. And I know they were trying to recapture that exact same vibe, the exact same feel, but they went way too far in this game, even going so far as to make the radio stations play fake music again. I don't even know if there were any real songs on this one. I know they actually had the Scarface soundtrack on GTA 3, which actually, when reviewing it, I didn't know anything about, but then I looked into it. I don't know if there's any real songs in this entire game, and it's a shame, because this game could have been everything. This game could have been Grand Theft Auto with Liberty City, or GTA 3 physics with San Andreas improvements and modifications. Being able to swim, being able to go underwater, being able to actually have all these different collectibles and side missions available to you to do whenever you want. That could have been the reality that is Liberty City Stories. Now, I know it's a portable title, and with portable titles come very limited storytelling capabilities, as well as just everything from graphics to physics engines and everything like that. But if they did it on the PlayStation 2 and porting it over, they could have added some of these features in. So my final rating for Liberty City Stories, before getting on to Vice City Stories, is a sad 6 out of 10. I did have a lot of fun with it on some parts, but other parts, such as the story, the execution, the plot, the physics, the inability to swim, just ruined it for me, and it bored me to tears. The only fun parts that I had were some of the racing and just exploring Liberty City again for the second time. And, of course, the interactions between Tony and his mother are always very, very funny and refreshing to listen to. So that's my final rating for that one. And moving on to Vice City Stories, the next iteration. Now, I know I have the double pack version of it because I found it in Pawn America. Vice City Stories is a vast improvement over Liberty City Stories. And once again, it adds in kind of that element of improvement. This game actually takes what was good about Vice City or Liberty City Stories and kind of amplifies it. Now, it doesn't amplify it to the strengths of San Andreas, mind you, but they added in some of the features that was prevalent in San Andreas, like the swimming, which I said, you can't go underwater, so I'll count that as half credit, like I said, for implementing more of those features, but they actually did something different. Vic Vance is the exact opposite, polar opposite, in contrast with Tommy Vercetti. Tommy Vercetti is a mob boss, mafia, gangster asshole, while Vic Vance, being Lance's brother, is an upstanding military Boy Scout, essentially. He even makes the quip, you got kicked out of the Boy Scouts, basically, to Lance Vance, which is his brother. And it's very interesting, just because you don't even start off in the same area. You start off in the exact opposite area. You start off in Ocean Beach / Vice Point in Vice City. Vice City Stories, you start out in the military base side of things. And it's really interesting just to compare and contrast the games because they're completely different. It may feel like the same game, but it's not. Unfortunately, the in-house gaming engine comes with a few hiccups. On the TV out in the living room, I found that my game lagged for some reason, which was not prevalent on the TV in my room. So maybe it was because it's a little bigger, but I have no clue why that would even affect anything. But I will point it out, as it is very, very noticeable, and it does detract from my final score. So, overall, it's a pretty game, especially for the PlayStation Portable. It's got a lot more lighting effects employed this time around, and it has pretty much everything that Vice City had, including a very integrative, immersive story. You actually meet a lot of new people whilst retaining the cameos of some of the people from Vice City, such as Phil Cassidy. And the interactions between Vic Vance and the antagonist, Jerry Martinez, are very, very humorous, to say the least. So, the only thing that really holds this game back is the aforementioned lag, and just the fact that it just feels like a carbon copy of the engine from Vice City, which it's supposed to be, and that's what the point was of Vice City Stories, was to put you back in Vice City, but it doesn't feel authentic to the original game, which takes place 2 years after Vice City Stories. Vice City Stories takes place in 1984, and it just feels like a carbon copy or a ripoff of Vice City versus actually putting you back in Vice City itself, which is what I would have appreciated a little bit more of, just to make it feel a little bit more authentic to the city, I suppose. But that's kind of a minor gripe. I'm going to give Vice City Stories probably 8.5 out of 10 because I did thoroughly enjoy Vice City Stories, especially just the sheer depth of the storyline and how much they actually improved over Liberty City Stories. But another thing that I will say, though, is the fact that in both of these games, you can't buy safe houses. Yes, you can go in your safe houses and save, but you can't buy safe houses around the globe like you could in Vice City and San Andreas. And to me, that was a huge part of what made these two games so immersive, is just going around, saving up your money, and buying a house, or buying an apartment, buying land, basically, an airstrip in San Andreas. And these are all but absent in this game. And to me, that is a shame. So, 8.5 out of 10. This is Midnight Strike 3625. Hope you enjoyed this double review. I will try and get GTA 4, my review of that one, out a little bit sooner. I have to brush up on everything. I actually just got, if I can get it in here, I just bought this not too long ago. It came in yesterday. I have the original game with just GTA 4 for the Xbox 360 that I've had since 2010, but I wanted to brush up and play the other two games that are included in this one, so I will be reviewing that or playing that as soon as possible. So hopefully I will get that out a little bit sooner. If not, then I'll just review Grand Theft Auto 4. If so, then expect 2 more reviews after that. So I will decide and let you guys know in a future video. Thank you for watching. Liberty City Stories and Vice City Stories are worth it to play, even if you're more than just a fan, even if you're like a casual gamer who wants to get some portable action in on Grand Theft Auto. Then I would strongly suggest Vice City Stories over Liberty City Stories, just because it has a more immersive and original story that doesn't just rip off and rely on nostalgia from the past titles. So this is Midnight Strike 3625. Keep calm and rock on.